If you have ever tried to make a cat do anything at all, you already know how this story ends. The Central Intelligence Agency did not. For 3 years in the middle of the Cold War, the most sophisticated intelligence service in the world worked on a listening device that could walk into a room on its own. It had a microphone, it had a transmitter, it had an antenna, and it had a tail. What it did not have, and this is the part almost nobody tells you correctly, is the ending you have probably heard. Start with the problem because the problem was real. In the early 1960s, if American intelligence wanted to hear what two Soviet officials said to each other on a park bench, it had almost no good options. A microphone has to get close. A person carrying one can be searched, followed, recognized. A parked van is a parked van, and the people you are listening to can see it. So the agency's Directorate of Science and Technology asked a question that sounds ridiculous now and sounded reasonable then. What if the microphone could carry itself? What if it looked like something nobody would ever stop, search, or think about twice? By 1964, according to the CIA's own published history, they were working on a cat. Here is where the record gets thinner than the story you have heard, so it is worth being careful. The CIA's own account today says a microphone was implanted in one ear, a transmitter tucked under the loose skin, and a fine antenna woven through the fur. It calls the operation a low-risk microsurgical procedure. It says the equipment was later removed and the animal was unharmed. Other accounts from people who were there describe it differently. Bob Bailey, an animal trainer who worked on the program, told the Smithsonian there was a battery and an instrument cluster in the rib cage with a wire running forward to the inner ear. Victor Marchetti, a former executive assistant to the deputy director, remembered a power pack in the abdomen. Those descriptions do not match each other. No release document settles it, and the surgeon has never been named. What the accounts agree on is the shape of the thing, a living animal turned into a radio. And it is worth saying clearly that the cat was not some rogue idea that one strange man pushed through. It sat inside a whole program. The same agency, in the same era, built a camera small enough to hang from a pigeon's chest and flew the bird over targets it wanted photographed. That one is not disputed, and it is not a legend. The camera is in the CIA's own museum. There was work on ravens trained to place objects on a windowsill. There was interest in dolphins. The logic was consistent, and it was not stupid. An animal goes where a person cannot. Nobody stops a bird. Nobody searches a cat. In a decade when both sides assumed every human being in the building might be compromised, an animal was the one courier that could not be turned. The cat was the most ambitious version of that idea. It was also the one that ran into a problem the pigeons did not have, because then they had to train it. This is where the money went and where the years went. They were not trying to get a cat to sit still. They were trying to get a cat to walk to a specific bench, stay near two specific people, and remain there while they finished a conversation. Bailey described using ultrasonic tones to steer the animal, signals meaning left, right, straight ahead. The team consulted Robin Michelson, a California ear surgeon who was one of the pioneers of the cochlear implant. These were not amateurs. The acoustics worked, the transmitter worked, the animal recovered. And here's the thing that any person who has ever lived with a cat could have told them for free. A dog will do a task because you asked. That is what a dog is for. Thousands of years of breeding produced an animal that finds your approval genuinely rewarding. A cat is not that. A cat is a solitary hunter that agreed to live near people because it was convenient. It has no evolutionary reason to care whether you are pleased. Your cat is not being difficult when it ignores you. It is being a cat. You know this. You have known it since the first time you tried to get one to come when called. The most secretive organization in the United States spent 3 years discovering it. The specific failure was mundane. The cat got hungry. In Marchetti's telling, the animal would simply leave, walk off the job in the middle of a test, because something more interesting was happening elsewhere, or because it was time to eat. He says they added more wiring to try to override the hunger. Think about what that sentence describes. A team of government scientists, having built a functioning mobile surveillance platform, sitting in a room trying to engineer their way around the fact that a cat wants lunch. Now the famous part. In 1986, the historian John Ranelagh published a book about the CIA. On page 208, he quoted Victor Marchetti describing the first field test. They drove a van to a park, they pointed the cat at two men on a bench, they let it out, and a taxi ran it over. In Marchetti's account, there they were, sitting in the van with all the dials, and the cat was dead. In a filmed interview years later, he put a number on it, $25 million, he said, down the drain. It is a perfect story. It has a punchline. It has been repeated for 40 years. It is also almost certainly not what happened. In 2013, Robert Wallace, a former director of the CIA's Office of Technical Service and a serious historian of the agency's own tradecraft, said flatly that the cat was not killed. The equipment was taken out, the animal was sewn up a second time, and in his words, lived a long and happy life afterwards. Wallace also gave the real reason the program ended, and it is better than the taxi. The project died because a cat could not be relied on to go where it was told. In his phrase, the cat wanted to do what the cat wanted to do. We can check part of this because the closing memorandum survives. It is dated March 1967. Its title, with the redactions left in, reads, Views on Trained Cats for Use. Almost every substantive line is blacked out. The National Security Archive published it in 2001. It does not mention a taxi. It does not mention a park or a Soviet embassy or a budget. It does not use the name Acoustic Kitty. That came later from the archivists and the retellings. What it does say in the fragments that survive is that repeated checks showed it was indeed possible, that this was, and here the language is exact, a remarkable scientific achievement, and that the environmental and security factors in using this technique in a real foreign situation force us to conclude that it would not be practical. Read that again. In the same document, the agency calls the work remarkable and cancels it. And the $20 million? There is no released budget that supports it. Marchetti said $25 million in one interview. Other retellings say 15 or 10. The only hard number anyone has produced from the files is $207,000 for a single fiscal year, for a broader program covering dogs and cats together. So the real story is not the one with the taxi in it. The real story is that a serious organization staffed by serious people built something that genuinely worked and was defeated completely and permanently by an animal that did not care. The cat wanted to do what the cat wanted to do,